Ice cream castles in the air and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way, but now they only block the sun. They rain and snow on everyone. So many things I would have done, but clouds got in my way. I looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's clouds illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds at all. Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing way you feel when every fairy tale comes true. I've looked at love that way, but now it's just another show. You leave him laughing when you go, and if you care, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away. I've looked at love from both sides now, from give and take, and still somehow it's love's illusions I recall. I really don't know love at all.
Get yourself together before it's too late. Oh. I guess it's time to go on tonight. Hello, everybody. Our dear friends from all over the world. Our little piece of sanity, this little consortium of reasonable people on our way wherever we're going. You know, I posted something by George Carlin, and George Carlin had come to grips with his own philosophy about life and said he just didn't care at some point anymore. And as a comedian, he went right to the edge. And I thought, well, maybe he had it right. Just let this thing happen, because perhaps we do need the asteroid. Maybe climate change and all really needs to happen, and it has to hit us hard. Maybe we just have to come to grips with ourselves and commiserate on the way out. I think it's probably where we're going. But at least we have us, you who's looking through the camera there, or I'm looking through the camera and you're wherever. But we're going to do this thing together, like the band on the Titanic. What else can you do? Dust balls in front of us and all that stuff. Well, but just when you think things are down, there's always somebody there to save you. Maybe he can do it tonight. Let's find out. David Price?
Hey, there you are, Brian.
Is there any hope, Dave, or is it all bollocks?
Well, let's get some other things out of the way first. You got a snowstorm up your way, right?
We did, and we had a nice bit of snow. It wasn't
Roughly.
quite as much as I thought it would be. I mean, there might be 9 inches out there, 8 inches. I don't know. It just blows around, and part of it's 5, and another one's a foot. But it'll melt because in about 3 days it's going to be 58 degrees, and the jet stream is, going up and down and all around, and one day it's 28, and next day it's 104.
But I think it's important for you and all our listeners to remember, as the great Donald Trump said, climate change could be a hoax. In fact, he probably believes he thinks it is the Chinese hoax. So I think these strange occurrences in weather, here and around the world, I just think it's a hoax. Because I don't think Donald Trump would lie to us. I mean, he's president of the United States.
Yeah, and it's funny, Dave. You mentioned, I know you're being sarcastic, but
Well,
I did
wasn't,
watch,
but
and I like Bill Maher, but the last year I've had a real problem with Bill Maher because he was frustrated that he didn't have his audience, and he felt that we were being weenies, and it was really only the old people who had to really worry about COVID. And then he was basically patting himself on the back and throwing bouquets to some Republican on his show. And it kind of relates, Veg, to what you've been talking about, at least what I think where you were getting to on your last video. I think it was your last video. It was all about ego. And I'm just sick of ego. I really am. I mean, I smell it from anybody. Even if it comes from myself, I have to watch myself and put myself in check. And I'm just wondering, is it all ego?
I think, obviously, you'd have to be a fool not to agree with that statement. You'd also be foolish, and I like the fact that you said even for yourself. These things that we point out, we also can fall victim to because they're part of the human condition. So with ego, the problem is, the one right now is, I don't know if you're familiar with Vernon Reid, the guitarist for Living Colour, the band. Are you familiar with him at all?
No.
Okay. Well,
I thought as soon as you said Vernon, I thought you were going to say Vernon Jordan.
No,
he's dead.
Vernon Reid. Vernon Reid is a black guitarist. Plays basically in the rock vein, right? Well, that's somewhat unusual, in terms of, again, in this, the first association is, very few black guitarists in rock. I mean, if you count Slash, I guess he's half. You've got Jimi Hendrix, a few others. But years ago, the band, his chief writer, they had a song called "Cult of Personality," and I really like that song. For anybody who hasn't listened to someone, see, and I like it musically, but I even like it more about kind of the message. And he was saying, and this would have been, let's see, they opened for the Stones in, I don't know, in the 90s maybe. So it's been a while, right? 20 years or something, and he's still around. But this cult of personality idea that's what we have right now, Brian. And it's funny, tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about your favorite podcaster, Joe Rogan.
Oh.
But when you said about Bill Maher...
Why do I not like hard asses for some reason,
Well, because hard asses... look, okay. You know who's a hard ass this week? Somebody we've trashed for a while. And we'll talk about him.
Well, Joe Rogan is a hard ass.
No. I'll tell you he's really a hard ass in terms of courageous and brave. That's what I consider to be. Somebody I've trashed, in fact, or not exactly trash, but said, what are you doing? That would be Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer. But we'll save Mr. Breyer, Justice Breyer, for a while. And I think that is, Veg, I know Brian and I agree on many things, but I think, we're entitled to like who we like. I've never been a big Bill Maher fan. And I'll tell you why, too. I think there's another reason. And Rogan's that way. On one side, I mean, he's extreme. Maher is that way. They're in jobs where you've got to have an ego, and their ego explodes. And unfortunately now, see, Joey remembers it, cult of personality. The idea is, okay.
Joey's pretty old. He would know a lot of things.
What? Oh, yes. Anti-guy has got two. Keb Mo, I've seen him a few times. He's coming back to the Birchmere here, and I will see Mr. Keb again. And Gary Clark, real deal, young black blues man. The idea of this cult of personality, though, is it's very hard because you sort of have to have an ego to get in these businesses. President of the United States, anything above. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Mayor of a small community. I mean, if you're shy and retiring, you don't. But it's very hard once you get there. You start getting some perks, and you start doing this. And now journalism is basically about numbers. Now, I'm putting together something will be coming soon about that idea, journalism, and looking kind of back on it. And part of it, here's the surprise, what we had, and I think I've mentioned actually on the show before, something we had, say, between, roughly, with the exception of the McCarthyism, roughly 1950 to 80, we'll say. There was this period where news seemed to be objected. It never really was. And it's actually closer today, believe it or not, to the way it's been in the past. But the difference is now the reporters themselves, whether it be Fox News or even the Washington Post, the New York Times, they become celebrities, right? How many times, Brian, have you watched any news show, national cable, and they've had 2 or 3 reporters on, right? And the reporters are good in the sense that they know something, but they're actually not experts in it, right?
Yeah, I've seen quite a few, especially climate change, and that used to get me really upset.
Yeah, and part of that is the fact that you can't pay guests, and so it benefits. My former student who retired from the business to raise 2 children, Katie Shepard. Katie was.
Is she with Mother Jones still?
What? No, she's actually her husband, Dean Freeland. They have 2 children now, and Dean is a big deal in his area, which is okay. It comes out of journalism, but it's numeric. This numeric studying of digital age journalism, and he had a job as a professor at American, and University of North Carolina picked him right up. So Katie's down there now. She's still editing for Huffington Post, but on a part-time basis. But Katie and I were talking. I kind of made a joke about it. I said, Katie, stay off my television. Can you just briefly explain who she is, Kate? Okay, Kate Shepard was a Bridgeton High School student. You taught her, right? Didn't you have her in class, Brian?
No, I knew who she was, but she was not at least as far as I knew. No, she wasn't in my class.
Well, Kate was a special in this sense. Over my 20 years in the classroom and my 9 years as a consultant, I guess you would say, for lack of a better term. I met a hell of a lot of kids, right? But Katie was exceptional this way. When she entered 9th grade in Bridgeton High School, she said, I know what I want to be. Okay, what do you want to be, Katie? I want to be a left-wing journalist and help change the world. And she went through that. You name publications. She was with Mother Jones. She was with Grist. She covered the wars in Latin America. She came back. She moved up to the Huffington Post. She was an environmental reporter. She was really good at what she did. But even she realized at the end, there was so much involved with social media that writing became like the 7th thing she had to do, right? You had to do a YouTube video, became back Facebook, Twitter being huge with reporters. And she was Keith Olbermann. She was on his show. He loved her. She was on Rachel, because she was very good at what she did and spoke. And
not to put her school down, but she's coming from, a city school, and she's working her way up.
Yeah. And again, she was what we call in the education business a legacy family. Her mother went to Bridgeton. Her father went to Bridgeton.
Is this the bus service? Is she related to the bus service?
No, that's not. They're actually huge farmers in Lawrence, Cedarville area, Lawrence Township, which is a rural community there. But anyway,
Veg, by the way, that's correct in Russia for sure.
oh yeah,
And Mexico. Mexico, apparently, it's really bad.
oh yeah. Well, it's not real nice here either. We're not doing the killing that they're doing there.
Be glad that you're not a journalist now, Dave, because I don't
Well,
I
it's
don't know
funny,
how long you would have lasted.
Well, you know what? It's funny you should say that. Again, it's the show is not about me. It should be. No. But it's funny you should say that. I was talking to the wife of my best friend in journalism. He unfortunately had the double disease of too much drugs, too many alcohol, and succumbed at age 65. He was 10 years older than I was. But, she asked me that very question. She said, his name was W. Leon Pope, but she called him Pope. She said, you think you and Pope could have lasted in journalism today? And I said, I'm not sure, but it would have been a hell of a fun fight, because I certainly wouldn't put up with the way it is, I don't think. And ergo, my job would be in jeopardy. But I worry about the job you have, Brian, today. Look, there's so many important jobs in America that we need, right? I mean, we need a president of the United States. We can't run without a president.
Right.
But we also need somebody to take our trash away, right? I mean, so I'm not trying to say one job is more important.
But the profession of educator these days, especially in certain states like Oklahoma,
Virginia here now is changing, Tennessee,
it's brutal.
And Alabama. Don't get me started tonight on Alabama, because the Price family, I'm not going to use the show, but the Price family is in a war against the education system of Alabama. But the idea of it is that I do think if you talk about directly impacting the future, teachers are very important. Okay. Again, tonight just happened to be my college roommate called. He's back in D.C., but he said we can't get together now. He is still battling cancer for a while, and he doesn't go out. And he said, I'm just not ready. He said, when the weather's nice, you can come over and we'll hang outside. He doesn't, and I said that's fine. He did what he did early. He left education in one sense and went higher up. But to just be a teacher in the classroom today is pretty tough. But this idea of cult of personality, for the most part, teachers are one of the few professions that have avoided that. You know what I mean? Like journalists now, like I say, they're nothing against them. And some were anyway. I mean, Carl Bernstein, Bob Woodward, I mean, they both say, we didn't topple a president. And they didn't. They reported on the people who helped bring down Nixon. But they were an integral part. So they become great names. We go back, wish Walter Cronkite was here again. I'm going to make a statement. I rarely do, project in the future. There will never, ever, ever be not just a person like Walter Cronkite. Yes, it was, Veg.
We're going to keep that as a favorite here, because I want to go back to that later in the show.
That's a great, what Veg just pointed out. Of course, I'm following here in Virginia, so we'll do a little history on it. Veg, jump in with your comments, because it sounds like you know a little bit too. The idea, though, as I say, so that's what's the difference between my two careers. Journalism has become this cult of personality, and then as you move up to the Bill Maher's of the world and the Joe Rogans, who in some strange sense believe they are or kind of are journalists. And then what's happened on these cult of personality thing is we get that. You've heard it, and not all of this is bad. You heard it constantly during the Jon Stewart years when Stephen Colbert was there with him. Young people, we get our news from the Daily Show, right? And Trevor Noah has done a great job. He's not Jon Stewart, but he's done a great job. And so, or we get our news from here. But the other thing is, whether you're Jon Stewart, who, trust me, I mean, he's about as good as they get, or he
helps animals too. So I'm real
I mean, Jon Stewart to me,
that guy's done.
He's just great. He's one of the great ones in a business where there aren't a whole lot of them. Or let me rephrase that: it's very hard to be. But I wonder if we ask him, could you do what you did? And I think he would say no, because of just what he's done. I mean, he left. He burned out. He said, it just got to be. I'm paraphrasing here. He just said, I couldn't treat it as a joke anymore, and that's what I was. And so. But when you're a comedian, you do treat it that way, and then does that make it light, and etc. So there we are, T-bone, tip lines, yes. Now,
Yeah, I mean that tip line shit is
Well,
just,
it's
it's out of the twilight zone.
Well, we're going to talk about that tonight. We'll continue that because I think that is something that's going to continue and only get worse before it gets better. But anyway,
Yay, Joni Mitchell.
And Veg, we're going to talk about that. I've been really focusing on that this week. So that's kind of the story I have, to really try to tell tonight. Certainly, I would take any help from anybody as I tell it, because actually, right before we went on air, Brian, and it's funny, this doesn't usually happen. Two pretty big stories broke. Okay, and I don't know if you caught either one of them.
I don't know. Maybe I didn't.
Well, I just always check right before we go on. I mean, I don't do that often. First of all, the person many call the greatest of all time, Tom Brady.
Which I heard that.
He
Well, the parent is saying they're not going.
Well, they're hedging now, but
right.
He probably did. Now, we're not. It's not a sports show, but I think again it talks that cult of personality. Right now, Aaron Rodgers, who arguably will, is in that line to the older quarterback. He and there's a handful, Russell Wilson, I guess, who now will go up to Brady's. Maybe not to Brady's level, but they'll be the grand old men. Aaron Rodgers right now is as much a political figure as he is a football quarterback because he's taken an anti-vax stand.
Right.
And Brady also was thrust into the limelight. If you remember, right as Trump was running, and they had a shot of him in his, Brady standing next to his locker, and there was a "Make America Great" hat in there, and so it wouldn't have surprised me. He's kind of the person who probably would have been a Republican.
He certainly seems to have that Republican look.
Well, I mean, look, yeah, and it's a money thing. I'm not saying that all moneyed people have, but that's kind of traditional. But what I'm saying is, so even if you're not right necessarily thrust into that, and then you get the other side, there kind of would be two people. I would assume, more right wing, if you will. Then you've got the left wing in sports, LeBron James. And I think,
right.
It'd be interesting some night to get some sports people on and talk about not the basketball playing, but the social activism of LeBron James versus Michael Jordan versus Bill Russell, and how much the times reflect what you can do, right? It was different. I mean, Michael Jordan started the sneaker thing. I mean, he didn't start it, but it was the explosion of it. That was make the money. And that's what people did. And now you've got people like Colin Kaepernick, or you've got women now fighting, for equal pay on the. And then you've got Joseph Vick there, down in Australia again, champion, my rights, my health. I'm not doing this. Gets banned. So everything, anybody who sits back in America or the world and says politics doesn't matter, they're wrong. I mean,
right.
They can't even say it doesn't matter to me.
Well, that's why we've been pushing the idea, Dave. Dave and I both are, seriously behind the movement to stop the warming of the planet, and I certainly have been behind this since the late 70s when I was taking courses. So I'm right there. It's just that I know the reality of this country and the world. Politics run the world.
And I think you're absolutely. And the other thing that I would say, and this, I don't want to discourage anybody who makes the environment their prime cause. We all have to have a prime cause, and that's an excellent one. Okay, good one. My feeling about that is I can do what little bit I can, but it's such a global problem, right? That I go, Brian, and you and I do agree on that. I mean, not that we sat down and planned it. I think the best thing I can do for the environment that isn't me personally doing something, right? Whether it's, again, such a minor thing.
Little things, recycling, turn your fucking lights off when you don't use them.
All that stuff. I mean, we've been using, and it's interesting to watch how society changes or doesn't. I'd have to ask Judy, and I don't even know if she'd remember, but it was long, I would say 25 years. We've been using,
by the way,
bags.
Happy anniversary, David Price, 49 years.
49 years, yeah, that's, we'll see if we can make it to 50, right? But the idea, of recycling, I mean, that's something I feel positive that we do. And now, what's interesting, some states are catching up to that. Virginia, which is rapidly going south, literally and figuratively, they did get the law passed before the Republicans took control of the governor's office. Now there's a charge of, I think it's 5 cents if you ask for a bag from a store. And I think that's great, right? So we'll see if more people use that. Now, I watch, and down here, like I say, this is a very, well, it's democratic, it's liberal community, so a lot of people do. But I remember when I lived where you do, for years, Brian, when we went to the Acme, when that was still open, and Judy and I were the only people who brought those bags, right? Then you saw a few. So that idea, certainly, and I think it's important because it's not just because we have a lot of environmentalists who watch the show. You know, we've said it, I believe it. If you're going to talk about what will probably end this quicker than anything else, it's our total disregard for the environment. And not only a total disregard for it, but actually a feeling that we will make it in spite of that, which we won't. And again, greed and power, right? That's what it's all about. So just something else I was thinking about, and then turn it back. You know, we can do something else. But
Sure.
I was really interested how you play the song. It's Judy Collins' song, Both Sides Now. And you'd think different things. It's a beautiful rendition of it. It's a beautiful song. Kudos to you for putting it together with that waterfall kind of thing. A great way. But there always used to be two sides, Brian. I always thought there were two sides to things. And to be honest with you, I thought the Republicans had a side. I disagreed with it, right? Mm-hmm. But now there aren't two sides. All right? There really aren't. And unfortunately, it has so many names. It has the name the left. It has the name liberal. It has the name progressive. It has the name Democrat assigned to it. And then the other side, left wing, right wing, Republican, conservative. But now it really isn't that, okay? And it's very hard for people to come to grips with that on the other side. It really is those who support democracy, and I can tell you who that is. That's everybody who votes against Donald Trump, right, supports democracy. And I can tell you who is against democracy, and that would be everybody who votes for Donald Trump. I mean, it's a very simple line, right? Because Donald Trump is not anything other than Donald Trump. Donald Trump would be
Dave,
a Democrat.
on those lines, may I just quickly, because
sure.
What you said, I want to tie, because there was something, a video from Jim Acosta. Some of you may have seen this. A woman called in on a show. Now, hopefully the audio will work. Oh, for Christ's sake.
By the way, when I denigrate journalists, and I do a lot now, Jim Acosta is not one that I denigrate. He is one of the really good ones working in the field. And somehow avoids, even though he's a personality, let me rephrase that. He understands the dangers of being a personality. And actually, I spent time when I was working in the museum, he was there a few times, I got to talk to him. And I mean, he's aware of the dangers of the trappings of power. So certainly, he is a good one. So you work on that, and I won't sing to the people. I would just say, again, a couple things while Brian's getting this on, and Brian, I'll stop with you. Currently, if you were to go on our Facebook page, there are 45 people waiting who have expressed an interest in joining, and none of them will join, will be permitted in, simply because they didn't respond to the one question. So again, I don't want to put more work on you, but if you reach out to someone and you really think they could benefit from it, or we could benefit from it, please, when you send a request, just say the one thing you have to do is, it's not even fill it out, just answer that questionnaire. Because I don't know, Brian, I know you do most of it, but I would say, and sometimes you got to before I do, I would say of the last 70 I've seen, two out of 70 answered the question, and that's approximate. Are you able to do it, or you want to move?
Yeah, I can do it. I don't know what happened. I have it.
Well, while you're doing that, I also want to point out something, and if you can multitask. I also took interest in your opening remarks where you said we might have to come to grips with that. And I thought that was a very courageous statement, because remember in high school when you got in trouble for gripping a portion of, well, we won't go into the great depths. It wasn't a pretty story. And you're not paying a bit of attention because you're really focused.
I'm watching you right now. I'm actually watching on a different screen, but I'm watching you.
No, I'm laughing.
When we were in high school, I was listening completely.
And did you hear about you were gripping yourself?
That part.
Yeah,
no.
See, that's the important part. No, but it wasn't important because it doesn't mean anything.
All right. Well, let's. Okay. have to make sure I have this up here. And hopefully this will be new scene. All right. Hopefully this will work.
Get us out of there. There we are.
All right. Now let me. I am going to have to put the echo thing on, so just
Just remember to take.
Okay. All right. So just say anything, Dave, for a second. Let's see if it picks you up. No, don't worry. Okay, good. All right. This should work. If it doesn't, I'll learn from my mistakes, I suppose. Here we go. Oh, let me just introduce this. This is a radio show where Marjorie Taylor Greene is a participant, and somebody calls in, and she deserves a medal. So here we go.
An attorney that no one's been charged with terrorism, just like no one has been charged with insurrection. I think that was very irresponsible of him to call them terrorists, and I completely disagree.
And the establishment will never love you, Ted. You know, you can bend over at bended knee for them, but they're just not going to love you. I think that was maybe an effort by the good senator, who we agree with on many things, to recast himself in the eyes of some of the folks in your profession. But we didn't find it particularly.
Well, this wasn't it. Let me just do it again. Let me reload the page. I don't know what's going on here. Well, you know what? Let's let me explain what happened, Dave, and we'll go back to the original scene here, okay? I try to. You can hear me, Dave, right? You were good. All right. So you're on, Dave. Everybody can
I got
hear.
it. I see.
Okay. So basically, there's this right-wing guy who interviews Marjorie Taylor Greene, and this guy, it's in Georgia. The show takes place in Georgia. So the woman calls up. She has a southern drawl, and she says, "Hello, I'd just like to tell you, I think, I'm going to just paraphrase her. She said,
Right.
that we know what Donald Trump did, and I think what you're doing is very wrong, very bad, and blah, blah, blah." So she goes on, and she attacks Marjorie Taylor Greene. And Marjorie Taylor Greene gets this, little smile while she's doing this. Then the guy who's doing the radio interview tries to help her out by saying, he says, everybody has an opinion. And she says, amen. And I'm telling you it right now. So it was really great how she was right from the heart. And it was funny because, again, the radio host was trying to help out his guest, and he actually hurt her in a way. But it was nice to see that somebody from wherever in Georgia. I look at back, for example, Virginia. I went to Virginia to see my mother's home when she was a kid, and it was in a place called Chilhowie, Virginia, which is in between the mountains there, and small town, one main street. And I saw what looked like to be mainly conservative people, but I think of my mother, who was this just strong Democrat, and she really hated all the bullshit of Republicans. And this is pre-Trump, because she had Alzheimer's. So there are these, really tough people. We look at people even in our own group, people from Oklahoma like Daleen, and like Melissa Green from Alabama. These are people who, they're just like us, and they're right in the pit. They're living next to Jeff Van Drews all over the place. And it's very heartwarming to hear this, and these people are very bold, and it's great to hear something like that coming from this sticks in Georgia. It's like I'm repeating myself, but it was very, very heartwarming to hear that, and it kind of reminded me of my mother, because again, she was from an area that was blue collar but yet conservative, but it just goes to show you there are tough people.
Well, and I think we all have, I always say, don't stereotype, don't generalize, and then we all tend to do it. Sort of things. And the South has a reputation, not undeserved, but of course, whenever you start saying all or the whole thing, it doesn't work that way. And certainly, I've only lived in two southern states in my life, Virginia and Georgia, and they are really split states, okay? Very much like New Jersey, Brian, except New Jersey the Democrats overwhelmingly take over the North. But in Georgia, the majority probably lean Republican, but that's changing as Atlanta and its suburbs grow. And in Virginia, it really is maybe the most purple state in the union, because it goes Democrat, then it goes Republican, and then it goes Democrat.
Dave, I actually think I have it now. Hold it.
Okay,
I'm,
put it on.
I'm
Let's
sorry.
see. I mean, sure. No. When you can do it, let's try
This
it.
is live TV, so to speak.
I
Let
mean,
me
this
first
is
change
part
it.
of the fun
Let's
experiment.
hope that this works.
Okay.
Okay. Again, I'm going to
this
put
is
on
one.
the
Let it
echo
go.
machine here, because this has to be this way for you to hear it. But hopefully this will be it. Not the commercial, but we'll see. Gotta wait through 12 seconds of capitalism here.
Well, you wouldn't if you get the right.
Let's see.
Pay a little bit more for you to.
Okay, here we go.
It hasn't exactly been a peachy week for Georgia Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who appeared on a public access call-in show in her district a few nights ago and got an earful.
Thank God for Joe Biden. She is an embarrassment to the state of Georgia.
Well, we all have our opinions.
Amen to that, and I've got mine.
All righty, thank you.
All righty, thank you. Greene, who helped lead the right-wing charge
All
to
right,
overturn
that
the
was,
2020 election results.
I tried to remember exactly what was said, Dave.
Well, you know what? It's funny. You know, in life, sometimes our mistakes do more. That was a fine, and you did a great job explaining it. I actually was more interested in the one you showed with Matt in there and Marjorie. And I assume, I mean, they say.
Yeah, I didn't see that one.
No, but it was there while you were playing. You know?
Right.
And what I find interesting is, and here's my, my.
I think she's a little too old for him, though, don't you?
No, it's not that. I'm going to say right now that a few things are in play. I'm not, I'm not there. They don't invite me to Republican soirees, and if they did, I don't think they'd ever invite me back. But I think two things are happening, and we'll see if I'm right. Trump's power is waning a little bit. Okay? It is. Some of that is the fact that he's not in office, and he doesn't have the power of the presidency. But there's some other things too, not the least of which is his remark about, for the first time, he says something about get vaccinated, right?
Right.
Even though he's been, super vaxxed and had the best treatment anybody could have. And Ted said, something that almost made sense. I mean, I guess he had a moment of insanity where he actually made sense. And of course, Matt and Marjorie didn't agree with it because it's not part of the, their hate-filled kind of, we don't agree with anything, destroy. And back to Mr. Trump, then you've got Mr. DeSantis. They're in a war right now. Only one of them can win. And I know a lot of people, Trump will. I'm not so sure about that, because DeSantis has the power to act right now, as does another dark horse candidate, as does Governor Abbott, who has expressed interest in the presidency, as does the real outsider, the current governor of Virginia. I mean, would he be in position to run, in 2 years, or is that even feasible? And then you've got the very beautiful but very morally vacant governor out there in Dakota, Miss Nome, and they're all positioning themselves. So, while people say, okay, the Republicans aren't unified. They are unified in terms of their message, right?
Well, isn't Mo Brooks trying to get McConnell out as...
Well, of course. Now, the thing is...
But I don't think it's going to turn into
if you were to
a
ask me
war to debilitate the party.
If you ask me who's the most powerful Republican today, of course it's Mitch McConnell. All right? We don't know, because he doesn't run around he doesn't run around mouthing off like the others. He simply does it, right? And now, I mean, he certainly does. Hypocrisy doesn't keep him from sleeping at night, okay? Because he is about power and wielding it and using it. And I think that's a good. Thing.
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah, it's a good thing to watch. I think McConnell's a real good one to watch. Yes, he does look like a turtle, so you don't want to watch him too much. But the idea,
But yeah, I know all that stuff. But I'm beyond like the body shaming in the face. I just think he's just a horrible human being.
I understand that. But what I'm saying is, if we're going to fight them, we should watch them, not constantly, all right? But just to know, and I think McConnell will send signals about who and how powerful people are, right? And Trump is calling for his ouster. Have you seen him be ousted yet? McConnell? No.
No.
And I'm sure, that cabal, of Gates and Green and Boebert and Mo Brooks and Gozart, or whatever the hell his name is, they don't want him because he's like the thing kind of standing in the way of them having complete control. So, when people say, oh, it's over, yes. But again, this week, I don't think Joe Biden did anything spectacular, right? More than any other week. In fact, I actually went back and looked so I wanted to prepare for the statement. He really had less play this week on the front page of the Washington Post than normal weeks because tangentially, you've got Ukraine, you've got these other things where he does play a role. And yet, some new polls showed this week that he beats Trump. So, American population depends on who you poll, when you poll.
And what an asshole that Zelensky is from Ukraine. He's, he needs help from us, but he's not helping the situation.
Well, Brian, I would always defer to you.
He's saying that we're not helping the situation.
You are the person I know who knows the most about Russia and Russian politics and Russian history. But my layman's understanding is they may be Caucasian like us, but that's about where it ends. In terms of.
And we did go to war with Germany, and English is a Germanic language, and they are white and all that.
But other than that, I don't think they.
We were trying to kill them, and they were trying to kill us.
I'm sure Europeans, look at us and say, "Wait a minute, Americans, they're not like Americans were." Well, I think we still are. It's just we're going through a really bad period, and maybe the worst of our lifetime.
Right.
But let's jump
Hence my
something.
introduction that at some point, you have to just kind of like breathe and say, I can't let this destroy me. It's bad enough as it is.
Oh, no. Well, there are some really good things out there, and this is, I'll talk not this week about them, but I really want to put them out there. Some ways, to stay active, but not to keep your mental health. And I don't mean like Zen or meditation, but political things you can do that also you can see maybe some immediate progress, and it helps because if you sit back and say, "Oh my God, it's overwhelming," and you can't rely on.
Well, I'll say this, which relates to what you're saying, Dave,
Right.
is in this part I will agree with Bill Maher that we're getting what we deserve because of the people.
Oh, of course.
You hear, everybody out there will hear their neighbors say, yeah, I don't trust politicians. But it's the politicians that you like and the party that you like that they don't like. They're still voting Republican. That's what they have a problem with. And we have the problem with the other side. And then you have ignorance, the ignorant people who don't understand what a Republican or a Democrat is. We're getting exactly what we deserve. And this is kind of what Carlin was saying.
Well, it's true. What is he?
I think it was Carlin. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't Maher. Maybe it was Carlin.
Many people have said, with a democracy, you get the government you deserve. Now that is true to a certain extent, but with the country so divided, just in terms of red states, blue states, like for example, it always fascinated me when I was a young reporter. Everybody hated Congress, right? But almost everybody in Congress came back because kind of what you said.
Right.
I hate Congress, but my congressman helped my son when he, or helped my family.
He needed a job or needed whatever, right?
Whatever, right? And so, it was like, no, if Congress is bad, it's bad. Now the numbers, they're interesting. We talk about the numbers, yet where it really counts.
David, you could just move forward just a little bit. You're not quite being picked up on
Better?
the mic.
Better. Okay. Let me turn the mic up to a little bit. I had it down tonight experimenting with it because I didn't want to scream into it. Anyway, what happens is
Perfect.
The numbers are really low for the president. Low for the presidency, but also low for individual presidents. The numbers for Congress are abysmal. Journalism is under Congress. And how do you run a country if that's truly how you feel about your leaders? Well, you got a chance to change them. But unfortunately, I don't want to change the president to a Republican because that's not, as we said before, it bears repeating every show. I think that America is better off every night when you go to bed at night with Joe Biden in the White House than any night that Donald Trump was there.
Absolutely. But they like Trump because he was kind of the perfect match for that philosophy, is get rid of them. Now, remember, the only ones they really, really wanted to get rid of was us.
Well, we know
Let's
that.
not fool ourselves.
Well, we know that. I mean,
because they'll try to ingratiate you and say, okay, well, Dave, all politicians are dishonest, right? And they want to, and then they want you to say that. So you say that. Now we're on the same team, but we're not.
But I think you're right 5 years ago. I'm not so sure that's true today. I mean, just the fact that, it's pretty clear in my world.
Because all of the Republicans have become that thing.
By the same token, they think we're that thing. Now,
they've attached it to us, and again, Carlin.
Yeah, that's it. Yes, Mr. Twain, Bella, was one of our wisest political figures.
But I'm not even sure that would work. It's good. I want term limits, but what's coming up has a stench. It's like you're saying, if it wasn't Hitler, it would have been Goebbels. If it wasn't Goebbels, it would have been Bormann. Where do you go with it?
Well, let's get on to an actual story, and we'll explore that tonight. Where do you go on with it? So I'd like to talk first, if I may, a little bit about Stephen Breyer.
Sure.
Supreme Court Justice, 83 years old, has been on the Supreme Court for 27 years. And remember, I did it. Many people did it, said, Stephen, come on, step down. And he didn't. Well, this week he did announce, right, that he is stepping down. And that is a good thing. And Mr. Breyer, I commend you for it. I could say it might have been better had you done it.
Don't you think Ruth Bader Ginsburg should have done it earlier? As sick as she was?
In retrospect, here's the problem with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I will compare her to Justice Stephen Breyer. In her legal career, Ruth Bader Ginsburg did much more for America and America's women than Stephen Breyer did. Does that give her a free pass? No. But from what I've heard from people who should know, whatever that means, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, it wasn't that she was invalid, but she really believed, as so many of us did, that Hillary Clinton would win. She would be there. She could help select, not so much select, but she would leave. A woman president would name her successor. It would be women, and she was wrong. Now, whether I thought you were going to ask, which is an interesting point, I don't know that it does. Did that enter into Breyer's decision? That Ginsburg stayed a little bit.
Right,
too long.
she stayed too long.
Right,
she wanted to see Hillary as president, and then
again,
shit happened.
Look, if I'm gonna fault, and I could, if I'm gonna fault Ruth Bader Ginsburg for staying on too long, believing that Hillary Clinton would, I have to fault myself too, because I didn't think that Donald Trump could win. I just didn't. Okay, I love to tell you, I'm smart, and I knew that it would be Pennsylvania, and I knew it would be. No, there was no way. Now, how much have I changed? A lot, but the country's changed. We'll never be able to say again, because Donald Trump won once, that it can't happen. Sometimes you need that wake-up call, okay? You really do. So we turn around. So what's going to happen with Breyer, okay?
Well, basically, using a metaphor, Dave, this country got cancer. That's what happened.
Well, again, I don't want to nitpick. It always had cancer, but it kept it under its shirt.
Okay.
It kind of opened its shirt to show us the cancer.
Right.
So we kind of suspected maybe it was there because they want to continue that cancer metaphor. They were losing a lot of weight. You think they're okay? I don't know. And then boom, now we got it. So what will happen with Breyer's? Well, now we're into the world of predicting, which is not a good world to be. Joe Biden, when he ran for president, said that if he got a chance to nominate a Supreme Court justice, he would choose a black woman. Now, cynics will say, of course he's going to say that, right? But I would submit if a court is going to represent the United States of America, there is a glaring lack on that court right now, right? A black female. Now, I would take it a step
Can
further.
you imagine a black female with Clarence Thomas? Man, that
Well,
I would love to be in there.
I was even
Anita
going to
Hill,
that.
but she's a little bit too old, right? Or not?
Well, actually, there was a lot of pretty jokingly.
Wouldn't
said.
that be something?
Well, I'll tell you why it would be something, but it's sort of like it wouldn't even fly simply because Joe Biden spoke against Anita Hill. All right.
Yeah, that's right. He made a big mistake.
And so that he doesn't want. He's not going to do it for that. But the second reason would be it would give some ammunition to the idea. Well, you're just after this or that or the other. Now, there's 4 names. Tonight's not the night. I mean, if you're interested in that kind of thing, anybody out there, there's 4 names been proposed, and usually when 4 names are proposed at this point, one of them will be the next. I wouldn't pay a lot of attention. Anybody says it's going to be this one or that one, but it'll come from there. Now, that's interesting in a couple of ways. A black female, all right, let's look at that. Number one, you would think that the Republicans are going to do everything to stop the nomination, much as they did with Obama, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they will for this reason. I think they'll jam it up a little bit. They'll try to delay in the sense that they believe they'll get the Senate back and then it could actually, kill it. Because I think what would happen is that may work against them in a certain sense. And also, it really doesn't matter as as sad as when I say this, it really doesn't matter even if Joe Biden were to select the best liberal person to hold a Supreme Court justiceship right now, they're still in the minority 6-3. So I'm not so sure. And plus, with being
Right,
black,
but you have to do something.
Oh no! But I'm saying
Right.
that's why I think it's politically smart to nominate a black female.
Absolutely.
I think it's deserving
Because
to
it puts
nominate-
pressure on Manchin. Who knows what Sinema will do? She's
well,
nuts.
no. Actually, let's put it like this. That also is interesting. Now, you know how I feel about Manchin,
Yes.
and you know how I feel about Sinema. I will say this: they have a cover if they want to use it, and the cover is this. Now we can say all day it's bullshit, but it is a cover. We don't want to destroy the filibuster because when we are in the minority, we want to be able to use the filibuster. Now, my argument to both of them would be it's meaningless if we don't have a country. And if we don't get a voting act, we're just
And
that
they
much
know that.
I understand. Look, they're both getting paid. I mean, not it's not a
They
bribe.
know all of that. Everybody knows.
Did you see this week they have to release some things? How much money one of the conservative Republicans financiers gave to Manchin? I mean, all legal, right? Yeah, it is. And Sinema, who knows? But I think that's a lot different than voting.
I think
against
they have
it.
something on Sinema. Now that's
Well,
just
they may.
conjecture. I'm speculating. I think
No,
they have something on her. I just don't. I don't understand this.
Oh, you mean the Republicans have something on her?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
no, I think she's just. I think there's a number of things. I think she's actually delusional in this sense. We talk about crazy. She really does think that she's a maverick.
Now she's fucked up.
No kidding, Sherlock. Okay, and so what I'm saying is, the idea of it is, I think And look, we can say all you want. If you believe you're 7 foot tall and you're 5'1", it doesn't matter because you believe you're 7 foot tall. I mean, you can look in the mirror, and she believes she's this man. Now, what I find terribly disturbing about her is the fact, and I don't know enough about her, nor am I going to spend the time to learn about it, but we do know that she came out of the Green Party. We don't know
Correct.
what her feelings were about the Green Party. We don't know anything. Maybe that was her only way to get into, who knows? But the idea
But
of
she's
it-
no
and
Jill
so-
Stein. Not
well,
now.
the other side of that is, again, she's getting tremendous funding from business interests who are Republican.
Big brother business. The real
There
problem.
And there you are, right? But here's the thing, and again, Lord knows, don't bet on me anymore because I'm wrong more than I'm probably right. But I think it'll be much harder for Manchin and Sinema to vote no on Biden's nominee for the Supreme Court because they don't have that cover of, well, we're doing it for the good of America. That'll basically be, if they do that, then you know they're Republican. And
Right,
that also-
right. I said that to Ronnie a couple days ago.
That-
if
you
they
know,
do that, then you know what's going on.
That also removes the cover of, well, it's better to have Manchin and Sinema there than it is two Republicans.
Right, it isn't. You have to attack them.
Not in that case. Now, they could not redeem themselves, but they could add to that argument if they do get this, if they do jump on board quickly. I don't see either one of them coming out to, sponsor or co-sponsor or do that. The thing to do, of course, is what you do. You look at the questions that are asked, right? So, I think they'll be smart. I don't think they'll ask any questions, and they'll vote. And I believe that they will vote in favor of Biden's nominee for their own personal self-interest, not because they suddenly, had what they used to say in the South, a come to Jesus moment, or, it's this or that or the other. Now, I hope that I'm right. Now, the other thing that I hope is that whoever Biden decides to nominate, that the Democrats get behind that person.
Dave, you've come forward if you can there.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry. Yeah, I said, I hope they get behind whoever that is that they nominate, right? Because with those four judges, I don't know much about them, just some of the profiles. They have strengths in different areas and weaknesses in different areas, and some are more political. But the thing that everybody has to ask themselves is this person better than for the country? No, because there are people that think Amy Coney Barrett is better for the country. But is this person better for America or for me and the America I want than the last three judges that Donald Trump appointed? And the answer is, just like Joe Biden is a better person than president, the answer is yes. Now,
although any Republican, as much as you are correct, 100%,
right?
Every Republican that I know, that's what I wanted to show. The commentary of these people across the country who believe that this election was stolen from this son of a bitch from Ohio, who he's a math teacher, a high school math teacher. He's trying to basically say Douglas Frank is his name.
Yeah, I showed it about the problem with all of that is, again, Douglas Frank. I don't know him. I'm not. You know what? This is going to be terrible. This is my fashion statement for this evening. I'm always skeptical of any male who wears a bow tie. I just am. I'm sorry. So, Mr. Frank has a necktie on, but we don't know enough about him to comment. And we need to know. But he strikes me from the biography, the little bit you were telling me about him, that he wants to be a player in his field. And the quickest way, again, we're back to where we started this story. The quickest way to be a player in your field is to take some completely asinine position, and especially on the Republican side, and go with it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like the 3% or less of scientists who say that climate change is not real. I bet they get more play around the country, with groups.
Right, and they'll take a storm like last night and say, you see, it snowed in Florida, and it's very cold, and everybody's saying, and this is, it just grates at you.
Well, Brian, again, you said it a million times, and you're right. Ignorance is deadly. Okay? Now, how does that apply? The word global warming, right, does not mean it's getting warmer every day in every part of the world.
Right.
But they're too ignorant to understand that you need to look into what that means. That's all. And
right.
you don't believe that? What about what was the Republican senator who brought a snowball into the Senate and said, "See, what's this about global warming?" Right? I got a snowball in my hand. So anyway, I'd like to suggest to our listeners a couple of things. Watch that. Watch.
I think that was that Mo Brooks or not? It might have been.
No, it wasn't Mo Brooks. It was one of them. There's so many to choose from. But again, to our listeners, I'd just like to say, if you're interested, in following things, I think
By the way, Tucker Carlson used to wear the bow tie too, and that's
exactly.
when Gore Vidal called him Mr. Bow Tie, and then.
Well, I just said, and again, there's certain things, we're not above those stereotypes and generalizations. I've just never met too many bow tie people.
By the way, Sandy, I just want to make a quick comment here. I actually like the expression global warming. I mean, I do know that certain areas are not going to be at any one time, but I still think you need to, not you, but everybody needs to have the concept this place is warming. You know, that's what's happening in general. It's getting warmer, and you know, when we hit 104 degrees and photosynthesis stops, that's it.
And Brian, I would say I want to take sides in this argument. No, I don't. But I think that's admirable, and that comes from you. And you are a person that believes the truth is the truth is the truth. That is you. Okay.
Why do you think I'm an atheist? Because I can't accept something unless I have some evidence, like any normal person.
And you're not real good at playing games because that's not in your.
No, I don't.
That's not in something you do. Now. I'm going to go with Sandy on this one, not as a competition, because I think, again, the ignorance, you have to take that into account. So I'm going to give you two quick asides on that, where I think they were horrible, horrible choices. And I would say, one, I've thought about what I would suggest, the other I'll just do now. I think one of the most horrible things the left decided on, or the Black America decided on, while I understand what they were trying to say, Black Lives Matter. And the reason that is bad, not the thought, is that gave rise to, and nobody else, and nobody else. What I would have done is simply add a 3-letter word to the end of that. Black Lives Matter too. And see what that does. The difference, yes, it's semantics. Yes, it's playful, but it takes away the argument. Now, the idea, the other one that I despise is woke. Woke, you're seeing that, and that just goes around, and that doesn't even, that's not even grammatically correct. It is a colloquialism and slang used, for the idea of woke, woken up, awake to, literally coming up. And I just think that was bad because people, what's woke mean? What's woke mean? What's woke mean? What's woke mean? And, well, I would have found something else. So next time I'll have a word for that. And then back to Sandy's idea, I use a climate crisis. But actually, I like Sandy's better than what I use because it's not really a crisis. It's pretty hard, Brian, to take a snowball and use that for climate disruption. I just think it makes it harder for the others. Now, does it change anything? No, probably not in the long run, because that's the other problem we have right now. Along every line, everything, Brian Weinstein and people listening, and I challenge anybody tonight or anywhere to dispute what I'm going to say next. Basically, everything has been politicized, which leads me to my next point tonight. I want to make tonight.
Let's do it,
Brian. Before that, anything you want to jump in?
No, I think I want to let you throw the topics up because I'm afraid even bringing up. I've lost a few tabs. I'm not worried about it. I think we've covered enough material. So let's go to what you have to say.
Okay. So, while I thought the Breyer story will have the most impact on America, the one that I find most interesting is concerns Spotify, Joe Rogan, and Neil Young. Okay, so I'm sure many people out there know, but let's sum it up. Okay, when I say Spotify, in 5 words or less, tell me what Spotify is, Brian. To you,
it's kind of like similar to iTunes, but it's for everybody. Unlimited play. You can play anything you want at any one time, and you pay for it.
And if you were to ask 100 people, and they knew anything about Spotify, they would give your answer, right? So,
music on demand.
All of that's true. However, it's changed. Spotify is moving into another area, which many people aren't aware of. They want to become the podcast kings of the world. And like anything else,
is your podcast on Spotify?
It is not. No, and if it were.
Good.
If it were,
I have to fire you, Dave.
I would have canceled today. In fact, I was going to do it today. I didn't get around to it tomorrow. I will cancel my Spotify.
I was actually going to ask you that because I know you're a big Spotify guy.
No, that's always. I mean, nothing. It's like, I don't know. It's like flying United because you always did it. I mean, it's the same.
Right.
So certainly, Apple has a good one. Amazon, of course, they all have problems, right? In terms of who is the least deadly. Well, right now, I think Spotify gets that win. So basically what happens in this controversy, Neil Young, who is admirable from a number of reasons. First of all, the main reason is he's produced tremendous music over the years, my opinion. Although I dragged my wife, and another person, Jim Crilly, who is a Neil Young fan, taught with us. For anybody, I mean, they don't know who Crilly is. And I made him go see Greendale, which it was one of his weirder works, and he does some weird things. And they were just, oh my God, this is terrible, and I hate it. But so what Mr. Young did, he comes out and says to Spotify. Now remember, he's always about audio. He doesn't really like Spotify anyway. And remember, he was the person who has never had his music licensed for any commercial activities. In fact, he wrote a song about it.
What's your pod called, Dave? They're all waiting.
It'll be there. It's coming. It's not till February.
That's what it's called. It'll be there. It's waiting.
No, there's actually more than one. So tonight, Brian, if you want, at the end of the show, I don't want to tie us up, I will announce the official name and the debut date, if you want.
Okay.
All right, I will. That's nice.
I've already got the name. You've got the name down.
I wrote that down. I might use it at some point because I change the names periodically. Anyway, before I completely forget what I was saying. So anyway, what happens this week is Neil Young comes out and sends a formal letter to Spotify, and says basically this. Look, you can have Joe Rogan, who is a danger to America by spreading misinformation about COVID. Now, at least two things he's said about COVID that are not true. Young people do not need to be vaccinated because they're safe. And the second thing is he got COVID and he took the worm tranquilizer or whatever the hell that is, that dogwood medicine or whatever. And he said it worked. So certainly, and again, he just says whatever he wants. And so Spotify, and Neil Young said, you can have me or you can't have him. So Spotify said, okay, they made a decision. They went with Rogan. Now, why did they go with Rogan? Well, first of all, as I said, they're not the least bit interested in doing music much anymore. They want to do podcasts because they're looking at the future and that's where the money is. And quite honestly, it is, okay? Podcasts have exploded. It's amazing. I've been researching that for a while because I want to try to get into that. And it's simply astounding because it's kind of under the radar, even though we all know, about it. So that's what happens. Now, let's talk about Mr. Rogan in terms of his numbers. There are no accurate numbers, but roughly they say he has about 100 million. No, not really. He has, not that, but they've used that number. Nobody really knows, but it's in the millions of listeners, okay? Now, you say, well, how does that benefit Spotify? Very simply, Spotify has two levels. One is free, and the other is pay. And Brian, anybody out there can figure this out. On the free one, you get it because you don't want to spend the money. But what comes with it? Commercials. It's just like listening to commercial radio again, right? You pay $9.99 a month. They take the commercials off, right? And you get it that way. So in other words, they're going to make their money either way, but they have far more listeners who take the free and put up with the other. So now guess what? They can charge advertisers more, just like on television, the more viewers a show has. Joe Rogan right now is acknowledged to be, by far, has the most listeners of any podcaster in America, by far. Now, Neil Young, older, has a very devoted following, but, they said, okay. But I think they made a mistake too here, Brian. So what happened? This is when this happened? Thursday, right? So yesterday, his former, significant other, Joni Mitchell. I mean, they've been bonded since way back when, right? And Joni came out and she said,
I think they both moved to California.
Well, they did. They're from Canada. They ended up together, and that Laurel Canyon. Kind of introduced at the same time. David Crosby and Graham Nash came from England, and so they were all kind of forming together. Warren, and then young Warren Zevon and young Linda Ronstadt are out there, kind of tagging along, and the Eagles are hanging around, and that was at one of those times when Laurel Canyon just exploded with music. Late '60s, very late '60s, 69, 70, whatever, and so Joni. But then tonight, right before we went on air. Now, two things happened. I was reading an article about it speculatively, and they said, and this columnist was saying, I wonder, and he named some people that are usually on the right side of issues. John Legend, Stevie Wonder, Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan. He said, I wonder what they will do. Will they pull it? Well, I think that's one step closer tonight to Bruce Springsteen pulling it, because one member of his E Street Band, Niels Lofgren, just before we went on air, pulled all of his stuff off Spotify too.
Oh, good.
Now people say, who the, yes, Buffalo Springfield. Poco, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Here's a fun fact for anybody. I'm going to go, my mind wanders. I will give anybody Brian will give anybody $10. We'll mail it to him directly. If you can say what 80s
Thanks for telling me.
black.
Oh, by the way, just so people understand this, it kind of works both ways. I don't ask anybody for money. I don't want your money, but I'm not giving either. I don't.
Oh well, then heck. See what Brian.
You got to get money bags over here.
All right, so we have to do it this way. I was amazed a few years ago when I discovered that Neil Young was in a band while in Canada named the Mynah Birds. Okay, that wasn't what surprised me. Mm-hmm. It was his fellow songwriter in the Mynah Birds, and it was an '80s star. So I'll give it about 2 minutes. Anybody who knows can put it up. No fair Googling it. You just have to know it. So back to Mr. Young. So you've got Mr. Young, who's a rebel. He does it. Joni Mitchell, who, whether you like Joni Mitchell or not, I think has always kind of approached music from the high ground, right? Now you've got Niels Lofgren. You say, who's Niels Lofgren? Well, if you live in D.C., he was big here, but he also played with Neil in the band Grin. In fact, if anybody wants to send me a message, I'll give you the great story of how they met. It was right here in Washington, D.C., and what Niels was doing as a 16-year-old kid who ended up playing with Neil. And then Niels is now one of the guitarists, little Stevie Van Sant being the other, in Springsteen's E Street Band. So I'm sure that he'll at least say, Bruce, I did it. Can you do it? And so as this builds, what does that do? Now, but before we start, I think you can applaud the stars, but here's how fast American commercialism will take over. Within 24 hours after Spotify began pulling their songs off of there, I'm sure you're familiar with Sirius XM, Brian.
Yeah, I got rid of it 3 years ago.
But it's there. It's Sirius XM is.
It's really basically Howard Stern's channel. He made Sirius.
Well, he made the combined. They were two again. Sirius and XM started in different ways with different things, and then when they combined,
Stern and Beetlejuice.
And when they combined, they became the Amazon of what it was doing. Satellite radio. Nobody competes with them. And immediately they reintroduced a show that they've run before called Neil Young Radio. Now, what does that mean? It means they're going to get the Neil Young fans. Now, does that mean they're better? No. It's even with the best of motives, Brian, in America, you always have to look about the hidden deals, unless it is someone like Neil Young. Not saying he's perfect, but I'm saying Neil Young usually does what he thinks he's right. Now, a lot of times that's kind of counterproductive to his fans. He certainly they're fans of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. They are better, the four of them, than they are the three of them. Neil Young is my favorite, but Young is terrible and really hard to work with because he kind of wants it done his way. But again, politics and music, big time. Now, let's talk about hypocrisy. Last point I want to make on this. Guess who's crucifying Neil Young? Of course, Republicans. Guess who's praising Joe Rogan?
Ted Nugent.
Republicans. I'm not even talking about.
Oh, you're talking about a politician?
Yeah, the Republicans are doing that right now. They're saying, "Oh my God, isn't this horrible?" Neil Young, that communist, hippie.
How about every Republican?
Well, and here's what happens. Joe Rogan, that's censorship. First of all, two things. Number one, Spotify can drop or put anybody they want. It's a business. We'll deal later with whether that. But right now, under the law, Twitter, Facebook, I'm saying they should be. I think we need to rethink that. But right now, they can drop anybody they want tomorrow, and that person has no recourse. And because Americans don't understand censorship and the First Amendment and free speech. But what I find now, so you say, wait a minute. Well, okay, where's the hypocrisy come in? These are the same people we were talking about earlier. These Republicans who are now calling for censorship and cancel culture, they're the ones banning books. You can't have it both ways, right? If you want to say, well, that's so again, politics, my point was to talk a little bit about music because I like that. That's what I write about. But the other thing is to talk about how intertwined it's become in everything we do in America. Every damn thing. Now, the last thing that I really want to talk about tonight, and then we'll, what do they call it? Not ad lib, but we'll kind of scatter around for a while. What I want to do, and sometimes I feel like I say, do action. And people say, what action, right? Long may you run, just like that old car that Neil had, Veg. But the idea of this, if you allow me, Brian, I looked it up and kind of found what the consensus is of the 25 most dangerous Republicans running either for local or national office coming up in the 2020, in this year's vote. And I think each week, and then at the end, I'll put together something and put it on, on the YouTube page or whatever, listing them all. And my point is, the one we're going to talk about tonight is in Arizona. And you say, well, wait a minute, I don't live in Arizona. But if you live in California, if you live in New York, probably the Democrats are going to hold sway there. You know what I mean? Now, you got to be careful because the Republicans almost took New Jersey and they did take Virginia. But, or maybe, there's not a presidential this year. And maybe if your senator isn't up. So what I'm saying is the suggestion is if you want to send a few dollars somewhere, this might be a place to do it. Or if you know somebody out there, get them to work. So I had never heard of this woman, but she's on the list. As I looked and I put them in alphabetical order, starting with states. So she's from Arizona, and her name is Carrie Lake. Now, I'm Ricky Lake. I know the band Lake Street Drive. So here's a little bit about Carrie Lake. Carrie Lake has never been in politics in her life, and she's running for governor. But she has been a longtime news person in the vein of a conservative on local Fox stations, right? So it would be like Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson declaring tomorrow a run. And she's decided to run for governor. Now, they'll have to have a primary in Arizona, and she'll just be one of the candidates. But guess who's endorsed her already? Mr. Trump. And he's going around. He's endorsing candidates. And it's no surprise he's endorsing candidates that are beholden to him or believe in him. So what makes him think Carrie will be a good governor? The fact that she's never, ever had held office before. Well, guess what? She has been steadfast in her belief that the election was stolen from Donald Trump. One. So automatically. She said if she had been governor, she would not have certified the election.
And that's
results.
what's scary. This is the kind of thinking.
So Trump is saying, okay, that's my girl. Then she comes along, even though she has no elected position right now, and has demanded that the election official who was in charge of the election, Democratic State Secretary Katie Holt, that Katie be, and I want to get this quote right, so I need to look at my notes here. So it's an actual quote from her, should be imprisoned, end of quote. And then she says for unspecified crimes. Well, obviously the crime is she certified the election correctly, but she didn't certify it the way Miss Lake wants it, and in turn, Mr. Trump wants it. So she's running, and I think there are 5 others in the field, Brian. This is for the Republican primary. And guess who the front runner is right now? Carrie Lake, by great numbers. Now, some of that is her name recognition for being a news person, but more obviously from Donald Trump. Now, I'm going to name 3 names here that she has supported and praised, and I think I've heard you praise all 3 of them. And my daddy, my Texas daddy used to say, "Son, you are who you hang with." And I think that's. Did you forget to pay your electric bill?
No, it's Ron must have hit the wrong light. We've got these computerized lights, and she must have hit it back.
I like that's what he's saying, guys. Look, if you could send some money to me, and then I'll forward it to Brian, so he can pay his damn electric bill. Anyway, Brian, I want you. Okay, yeah, you're back. I know you support all 3 of these. So 3 people that she singled out for praise as being quote good Americans. I think you
can't
know
wait
Mike,
to hear this.
Mike Lindell, good American. Michael Flynn,
Ah,
example of a great American, and Paul Gosar, who is also
you could not have picked 3 worse people than that.
All right. So now, I think it'll be interesting if Carrie Lake, and apparently that's pretty much a foregone conclusion that she will win. Of course, a lot can happen in the primary, right? But right now it appears, because the other candidates don't have the name recognition and the numbers aren't there. And I would be interesting if Katie Holt, the state secretary, she is running on the Democratic side for governor. And obviously no love lost. But the idea of it is, if you don't, I'm going to try to suggest there's a cause if you don't have one. Now, Brian, I'm going to use you for an example. Not because it's your show or anything, just because you have a cause, okay? And you've got to stop Jeff Van Drew because Jeff Van Drew is your congressman. But there are places where your congressperson is good. I don't think AOC will face, opposition, any opposition that can conquer. So if you live in such a place like that and your senator isn't up, I would urge you to consider if you do spend election funds and you want to have them dedicated.
A little bit closer to the mic, Dave. If you could.
I will. If you want to have them dedicated, then send them to that's a place. And I've got 24 more to go. So and we'll sum them all up.
Each one of those, I think, wow, Lindell, he's got to be the worst. Then you said Mike Flynn. He is the worst. And then Gosar.
It's what?
Just
if we had that kind of, we don't have that kind of show. It would be fun, to listen. We could have like the worst, right? And do like they do.
Yeah, they do
12.
that kind of. I think it was
a lot
the guy Oberman used to do that.
Yeah, here are the two,
Doberman.
and next, the winner will go on to face, and just go until you're in the end. It's sort of like the Royal Rumble for wrestling. 2 people enter, and then more come in at the end to have a winner. And let's play that game, you and I, right now. And anybody out there listening can put it in. If you had to, and we're going to remove one candidate from there because of the ultimate power. And who is the worst Republican out there after Donald Trump? And you can define worst how you want.
The worst one to me is the most dangerous one.
Okay.
After Donald Trump. That's just my opinion. I'm not.
Who do you
don't
now,
go by me.
Who do you think it is?
The most dangerous one is the one who wields the most power and can hurt us the most.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go with kind of like where you were going with McConnell, because in the end he's still the most dangerous because of his power.
No question. But we're going to give Mitch a break tonight, and we're going to remove his name from it because they are the 2 most obvious, I think, right? Trump, because the ex-president.
Mike Flynn doesn't have, unless he's working with his brother, he doesn't have that power to get it in yet.
And Lindell, I will go on record as saying anybody who buys a pillow from that man, there's something wrong.
He's got a sale on, Dave, believe it or not.
I'm just saying his pillows can't be any good if they come from a person like that. There is something seriously wrong. And Mike, if you should stumble on the show, look, I don't agree with anything you say. I don't think you're a good person, but I think you probably are a human. Please go get help, Mike. Please go get help. Now, Karen comes up with DeSantis. And Karen, I'm going to go with you right now for this reason. He is the only person out there polling any kinds of numbers if Trump is in the field. And I would have said all along, Brian, that they'll defer to Trump. I don't think so now. I don't think DeSantis will. I think he'd even go to a primary, possibly, unless someone could talk it out of him, or unless Trump made a deal, back out, and I'll make you vice president, and I'll only be there for 1 term. And if DeSantis bought that, because the question now becomes, Brian, with these people, in the olden days, in the olden times, you took the vice presidency for one of 2 reasons. You were kind of just wanting to coast out, right? I think that was part of Joe Biden's thinking. He was helpful, but I don't think he really planned on running for president again. I really don't. I think,
Because he didn't think this was going to happen.
Well, there you are. And that's another thing why I give him, I don't want to say I give him a pass, but I really do think he came out to try to do what he could do.
He's kind of doing what Ruth Bader Ginsburg thought she had to do. She thought she had to do it.
And Ruth, I think, I only
I like
again,
that one, Kim. That's about it.
De-Satan, yes. And so you have this, and now, does that mean, that we give, you say that, well, what about, then we go to Abbott. What about, well, they're there, but I think, again, the question, there's no right or wrong answer, right? But I think
Right, but it's good to speculate on who is the worst.
Now the other thing would be, on the other side, let's try the other side tonight. Let's have some fun here. Yeah, Ted Cruz, can't argue
But
with
isn't
that.
it Dave like Heller with Catch 22? He said something like, the one who can get you killed is your enemy.
Well, that's true. Let's go the other side then. Who would you pick right now? And they have to be active. Okay, so old Georgie Bush is out of it, and anybody retires out of it. Who is the best Republican right now?
Any Republican that tells the truth is good for me. So
that's true, but now you got to pick the best.
I mean, look, they're not good because this is, again. I'm trying to parse everything. What Bill Maher said, yes, is from what I watched. The one thing I did agree that we can't say that Liz Cheney is a great. I mean, she's doing what she should be doing, and that is telling the truth. But how much credit do we give her? I mean, maybe you have to give her credit because there's a lot of deadly, maybe literally deadly pressure on her to do it, not do what she's doing.
Well,
so in that sense, that's good.
There's never been anyone in her position in American politics. Her father, vice president, right? Very powerful man. Certainly, I used to call him before. I don't give people funny names anymore because Donald Trump does that. But I used to really think he was kind of related in some way to Darth
That's
Vader.
probably your answer right there. I mean,
and Sandy, yes, I would agree. But that can't stop us. So I agree. But so I think again, if I had to do it, I think I probably would say Liz Cheney right now, simply because she's at the forefront of the fight. In her mind, for I like Vege's answer. That might be the best. The worst Republican right now is Manchin or Sinema. Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that. That's great.
Right, because they're
Veg,
so bad.
As much as I love that answer, if I'm what is it, Alex Trebek or one of the guests, the host, you can't have that. You can't have that. Yeah, well, and think about that. What Kim just put up there. I mean, what does that say about a party when they don't have anybody that you can find who's decent? And that hasn't happened. I remember last week, I think it was last week, did I talk? I think, again, I lose track. Was it last week? Maybe? Yeah. I think I said I'd watched the movie Summer of Soul, which is about a festival, a Woodstock-like festival of all black acts in Harlem, same time, same summer as Woodstock, held over 5 weekends, I believe, 4 or 5 weekends, but its total attendance was 300,000. So it's certainly in the ballpark, right? Totally of that. Kind of lost in Questlove from the Roots, found this film laying around and put together a really good documentary. And it's good just for music. It's good for the time. I mean, I was alive then. It's that. But what I really found interesting is one of the people who emerges from that as a really good person is John Lindsay, who was the Republican mayor of New York. So to say that there weren't, I think Nelson Rockefeller was a decent Republican. Who was, I'll tell you, was a very good one, was Mitt Romney's father, George.
Well, I tried automatically lowered because the internet connection